Oh, is everything okay?
No.
What's the emergency?
People are demanding a sequel to Sticky Hips.
Sticky? Really?
Yeah, it's weird.
Okay.
Well, first thing we got to do is come up with a name for it.
Sticky hips?
I think it's got to be something different. Like, what about like stips? We take sticky and hips, we combine it together, stips.
Is that not a disease?
All right, well, why do we go the other way around? We do hips and then sticky, and we call it hickeys.
Let's not do that one.
What about just like stickies?
No.
No? All right, well, let's call it Sticky Hips.
Okay. So we got tons of messages and comments on our last video about sticky hips, wanting a part 2. Here's my favorite comment. Are Jeremiah's muscles actually CGI? How can a guy with such big muscles also have such a great personality? Well, the secret...
All right. So we decided we are going to dive deeper into the Sticky Hips for you. In Sticky Hips Part 2, we're going to be talking about the muscles on the outside of your hip.
So get out your butter and your lube and get ready to move.
The first thing we need to do is to determine whether you have a tight outer hip. Sticky outer hip. And we're going to show you 2 different tests for that. The first test is called the FABER test. FABER stands for flexion of your hip, external rotation of your hip, and abduction of your hip. What this test looks like is you're going to go into a lying on your back position. You're going to take your leg that you're testing. You're going to bring it up. You're going to bring that bone on the lateral part of your ankle, your lateral malleolus, put it above your kneecap, and then you're going to allow your leg to float down towards the floor while you're keeping the opposite hip rooted into the mat. Okay, so this side has to stay firmly planted on the ground. You're coming down through there. And what we're looking at is, can you get your shin bone roughly parallel to the floor? So when we look at that with Jeremiah, he does not have a sticky outer hip. What a sticky outer hip is going to look like with a FABER test is you're going to come down and you're going to get to maybe like a 45-degree angle or above, and that would indicate that you have some tightness in those structures on the lateral part of the hip. So if you pass the FABER test, you still may have some tightness in that lateral aspect of your hip, because at different angles of hip flexion, due to the anatomical shape of those lateral hip muscles, you may have tightness in a 90-degree or greater flex position that you didn't have when you didn't have so much flexion. This second test addresses that, and it's important that you're loose in both of these tests. The second test is called, and it comes from the fire log pose in yoga, we call it the advanced outer hip test.
Or FLAOH.
Or FLAOH. And this one we just made up, so enjoy. So here's the test. So for the FLAOH, first thing you do, seated position, you want to get your butt all the way back against a wall surface, and then you want to make sure to be into that slight anterior tilt so you have spine neutral maintained in your lower back the entire time. Then we're going to go into a yoga fire log pose. So you're going to be taking your leg, you're going to be bringing it up on top of the other leg surface. You want to get that lateral malleolus all the way up and over, maintaining roughly about a 90-degree position in your knees. So first of all, if you cannot get to that position, meaning you can't rotate enough, you are so tight in your lateral hip, you can't get your foot over there, you have failed the test. If you're able to get your leg there, congratulations. Take your fists, take a double fist width from your foot to your knee. If you're able to get your knee here, meaning you can touch the knee to the hands, that is considered functional or adequate hip rotation at that motion. If you're able to get your leg all the way down to a single fist width, congratulations, you have exceptional hip mobility on the lateral aspect of your hips. At this point, you may have determined that you have a tight lateral aspect to your hip, or maybe you don't. But we're going to show you 4 great moves to improve your mobility or maintain it. Technique number 1 is a SMR technique for the lateral hip. You can do this self-myofascial release using a lacrosse ball or a mobility ball. What you do is take the ball, pop it underneath the lateral aspect of your glute, lean onto it to get some tension in there. Keep the leg bent on the side that you're not mobilizing. First thing we're going to do is 4 reps of bringing the heel to the shin bone, nice and controlled. Second move is 4 reps of a clamshell. So you're going to be opening out into the hip and then back. The final move is 4 reps of just rotating on the ball, letting that ball dig into that tissue. Repeat that sequence 4 times on your left, and then repeat the sequence 4 times on your right. The second move is an active stretch for the lateral aspect of the hip. You're going to need a flat band for this move. I typically recommend a lighter flat band. Take the band, loop it around your foot, and then loop it 1 more time around your foot. Lay backwards, and then ground the leg that you're not moving into the floor, tightening your quad, pointing your toe towards the ceiling. Take the band, wrap it around the back surface of your neck, and then extend it out straight, and then pull your leg into your body so you can press out at an angle. So the move is pressing through the heel, tightening through that muscle, holding for 3 seconds, then back the tension off. Press, hold for 3 seconds, back the tension off, and complete for 5 to 8 reps.
So mobility drill number 3, you're going to start in a seated position with both legs straight. It looks similar to the FABER test in the beginning. I'm going to focus on the right hip. So I'm going to bring my right foot and bring it just over the top of my thigh so I can see my knee bone and the lateral malleolus is crossed over my thigh. I'm then going to lightly puff my chest so I can make sure I maintain neutral spine. And I'm going to slowly drag my heel towards my butt. The closer I get, the better. If I get to this point and it's still pretty easy, you might progress the stretch a little bit by lying down on the ground, using the floor as a guide. I want to make sure that my lower back is a little bit lifted up off the ground, head down and tailbone down. And now if I want to increase the stretch, I'll reach through for my thigh and pull my ankle towards my chest. Bigger stretch, grab the shin. And then even more so, I just start hugging. I start pulling in. The whole time, the goal is to keep that lower back just lightly lifted up off the floor. Mobility drill number 4 is pretty advanced. It's basically just our FLAOH test that we showed you earlier. Position setup is about the same. So I'm going to get an anterior tilt to the pelvis so that my lower back is lightly lifted up off the wall. I'll get to that fire log pose and pick my right hip again. I'll place my ankle just over the top of my knee. And let's say I'm starting up here. I might either use my hand or a light weight to press that knee down into a passive stretch. You want to make sure that you maintain that spinal position the whole time. Let's say that this is still easy and you really want to progress because you're a weirdo like me. You might then understand your spinal position. This takes some proprioception because now I'm lifting it off the wall. I want to maintain that anterior tilt in my pelvis and I'm going to try to pull myself down towards my shin. The closer I get, the more intense that stretch gets. And oh boy, does this get to be a very intense stretch. You might hold that for 20 to 30 seconds, come back up and repeat on the other side.
All right, well, that was a job well done.
All those hips unstuck.
Yeah, although I do feel like we have a little bit of a cliffhanger here. Could we have another episode of Sticky Hips?
What else would be sticky on a hip?
Well, we could have adductor muscle sticky hips, we could have internal rotator sticky hips, we could have IT band sticky hips, and then we could come up with some cool names like Sticky Hips, Return of the Jedi, or like Sticky Hips, The Last Crusade, or Sticky Hips, Tokyo Drift,
Or Sticky Hips 3.
Sure.